So I'm not sure we've done this before, but we are heading back to WCW for our worst booking entry this week. And oh my gosh, if you don't know, World Championship Wrestling in the year 2000 was absolutely amazing for all the wrong reasons. You also had commentators telling you that wrestling was a work and that you're an idiot for watching all this fake stuff, which is actually what we're going to talk about later. And if you want to know where it came from, it was mostly from the brain of Vince Russo. And I'm not here saying, oh, Vince Russo killed WCW, but I am saying he was part of a group of people that helped light the match. It ties right in because he was behind the New Blood Rising pay-per-view. And we've already said it, right? Some things are so bad they become good again. But after rewatching this, I think it just may be the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. I'm not just referring to pro wrestling, I mean literally anything that has gone through my eyes and into the brain. This may be the bottom of the pile. It was on the 13th of August though, and by this point the WWF was way ahead in the ratings. So I suppose the best thing to do is just go match by match so I can explain to you why this is some of the worst booking ever. You can see how mad it's going to get straight away, because our first contest is a ladder match where the winner is going to get a gold record and a record contract. So I can only presume that WCW went, does anybody know how you get in the music industry? And somebody's hand went up and said, yeah, you have to climb a ladder. They're like, well, thank goodness for that. It ties right into one of our stipulations. You also had 3 Count taking on the Young Dragons, and you had another stipulation here, because one wasn't enough, and that is if 3 Count wouldn't have won, they never would be allowed to make music again. So once again, let's play this out in the quote-unquote real world. They walk into, I don't know, Sony Records, and the person behind the desk goes, sorry, you trio of nobodies, we know who you are, because we watched that pay-per-view, no record contract for you. And what if Shane Helms, who was part of that group, started singing in the shower? There's a lawyer just busting and goes, that sounds like you're making a tune for me. Don't make you throw you out the window. Tank Abbott, who had been brought in as a monster, was also like 3 Count's friend during this. And the promo he cut at the start, I mean, he basically just talks about his nipples. Well, he doesn't talk about his nipples, but there's a lot of nipples. So actually fair play to Tank, because he's clearly having a good time, and I can't fault that. And there is some trivia here. I mean, obviously the Young Dragons, were wearing masks, but under one of those hoods was none other than Jamie Noble. Now, a huge thing that we do have to throw into the water here as well is that unlike a lot of people at WCW in this time, all these 6 guys really gave a shib, so you can take the story and put it over there. In terms of their walk, my word, they give it everything. Thankfully for 3 Count as well, they did have Tank in their corner, who stops the Young Dragons from winning here, as he basically murks everyone, which allows Evan Courageous to climb that ladder and grab the contract and whatever else was up there, when Abbott just grabs these things and he runs off. So I'm like, is that allowed? I mean, possession is 9/10 of the law. I think this also means that he's Elton John now. Pretty sure that's how it works. When we cut to the back, and Ernest the Cat Miller is just yelling at the young, dirty, filthy animals, whatever the flub they were called. He also just accepts a bribe on camera, because the animals are always like, look, here's the 2 things we want. We want to be the special guest referees in the tag match later, and we also want a tag title shot. And if you do give us that, because Ernest was kind of the GM at the time, we will also help you in your contest. He just says yes. He says, that's perfectly fine. And did anybody from WCW management pop in and go, we know we're watching this right now, live on pay-per-view? No, they did not. Do you want to know who he was facing to? The Great Muta, who was basically treated like he was a nobody. Believe you me, he is not a nobody. So this is just incredible. I don't mean the ECW guy, but it's quite sad to see Muta here. This was when he was at the end of his career, and his knees basically didn't work. It's probably why the cat walks right up to him and donks him on the head with a microphone. But when the Great One applies an armbar, do you know what Miller does? Nothing. He doesn't even sell it. He basically looks at Muta like, is that all you've got? I'm like, it's an armbar, man. I know it's 2000 and MMA hasn't blown up properly, but come on. The cat is then choking the Great Muta with a camera cable, even though he is meant to be the good guy. But once again, we also saw him accept a bribe. So that's a bribe, it's attempted murder. This guy's terrible. Of course, eventually Muta does use the green mist, but that means nothing, so the filthy animals do live up to their promise. So out comes Tigra. She casts distractions, and then we get a bunch of chair shots, and Ernest the Cat Miller just wins. I mean, it's just so utterly pointless, and you get to the end of the match and realize nothing has changed in your life. And once again, we do go backstage, and Buff Bagwell is looking for his mother. So I would say prepare yourself for this, but we are going to get right into it, because that's right. If you want to know where Mrs. Bagwell was, she had been kidnapped by Canyon. That's what he thought would progress his wrestling career. Why did I commit more crimes against people's family members? Actually, that's not true, because Canyon's big plan here was to have Judy Bagwell as his valet. So once again, that's what he thought was missing, an old lady. Buff wanted to win her back though, so of course it meant the only thing to do was have a pole match. I mean, I don't have a problem with that, do you? No. Let's just stand here and look off into the abyss. The other thing goes totally off the wall though, because Canyon is like, well, I couldn't find a pole big enough to suspend a human person, so instead, I'm just gonna put her on a forklift. And straight away, if you're a normal individual, you should ask, well, where the flub did you get the forklift from? Now, I need to make this clear too, in case you've never seen it. I am talking about Judy Bagwell, who was a real human being, a real person, being thrown up into the air on a forklift, and the winner would gain possession of Judy Bagwell, right? Don't try and find excuses. Don't try and allow this to make sense in your brain. That's actually what WCW had decided to do to make you buy a pay-per-view. There's more to this as well, because Canyon had recently turned heel on DDP. So it's just doing all of his moves when David Arquette turns up. I mean, why wouldn't he? Why wouldn't David Arquette turn up? I mean, I was half expecting it. No, I think he's a bad guy too, because he'd also turned on Diamond Dallas Page, so he tries to help Canyon here, but he totally fails, and Buff hits the blockbuster 1, 2, 3. And that made me scream out loud, and I was like, wait a minute, why is there a pin? I thought you had to go to the forklift and save your damn mother. That should never be a sentence either, and I'm mad it did just come out of my mouth. And of course, before we do move on, Canyon turns on David Arquette. He needs to get his heat back. So I have no words, which also includes the next segment, because we saw Lance Storm arriving late at the arena with a giant motorcade, and I was like, I'm sorry, I know the Lance Storm character, and in no universe, even a dumb one, would this guy ever be late. Around the same time, the commentators also tell us that Goldberg may not be here later, because he has been caught up in a car accident. And I audibly said out loud, how many angles do we need all at once? When we just get a mad tag team match after this, I mean, there is so much noise. Now, this is Chronic versus The Perfect Event versus Sean O'Haire and Mark Jindrak versus what has to be considered one of the worst teams of all time, at least when it comes to the name. Because indeed, it is Corporal Cajun and General Huge Erection. I'm not gonna say it the way WCW wants me to say it. They wanted to have a character that was referring to somebody's penis. Now, we already knew that the special guest referee for this was gonna be the Filthy Animals. So if you're now pondering to yourself, well, this must have been filled with shenanigans, you're totally right. Conan also joins commentary for this, and he runs everybody down to the point in real life he pissed a bunch of the wrestlers off. And then at one point, the Disco Inferno is the referee, but he's crap at his job, so Chavo Guerrero Jr. just takes over, and all you really need to know is eventually Chronic wins, but who the flood cares? When we get a Jeff Jarrett promo, and he just tells us that he's great and says slap nuts around about 1,000 times. Great. I don't even know how to get into what did happen after this, because it was Shane Douglas, who was now just calling himself the Franchise, who was now also accompanied to the ring by Tori Wilson, because he was taking on Billy Kidman, and in real life, Kidman used to be married to Tori. What? It's also a strap match, so we had another stipulation, but we'd thrown the rules away from this too, so no longer did you have to touch the four corners, you could just pin the guy, so what's the point of doing a strap match? If you want to know about the build too, one of the reasons the Franchise was so mad at Kidman is because Billy had stolen his Viagra, meaning now he couldn't have sex with Tori Wilson. Once again, look what WCW has reduced me to. Very upset man. No one ever mentions whether this is no DQ or not either, so of course Tori Wilson gets in there to cause a big old fuss. But Billy Kidman just goes and wins anyway. It's even worse because Vince Russo has no idea what good taste or a good babyface is. So after this, we actually act like Billy is going to beat up Tori until eventually Shane, the Franchise makes the save. So everything is just backwards, and then Big Vito is here too. I mean, why not? You may as well show up, nobody else cares. Booker T then pulls a Lance Storm because he's super late to the building as well. But apparently Jeff Jarrett didn't like this at all, so he beats the crap out of him, so there's a bit of jeopardy when it comes to our main event. But there's not. I'd already seen Judy Bagwell on a forklift. I mean, what else are you really gonna do? This pay-per-view then gets totally offensive because of course it did, because we basically get like a mud match between Miss Hancock's and Major Guns. I refuse to talk about this because it goes way too low, because it is just two people ripping their clothes off in some mud. And then afterwards, we get one of those stories that just makes you question what the hell wrestling was thinking. Because it is indeed a pregnancy angle when David Flair runs out, who apparently was dating Miss Hancock, and we start acting like maybe she was with child, and getting hit in the stomach was a bad idea. And of course, then the commentators start calling her Stacy Keibler to actually pretend like this is real. By this point, I was like, man, somebody just pushed me out the window. Vampiro, the Great Muta, and the Demon, and then being interviewed, and they're like, we want to destroy Sting later, and that made me sad too. Why the hell are we treating Sting like this? Tony Schiavone then has to look into the camera as well and say what happened to Stacy Keibler earlier was not part of the story. So once again, I was staring off into the abyss. That's twice I've done it during this show. I don't think that's a positive thing. Thankfully, after this, Sting does destroy the Demon in a match. This is the highlight of the damn show. Because it's Sting, damn it. He shouldn't be bogged down in stuff like this. Well, the truth of the matter is that if it was 2000 and you were in WCW, man, you were going down to hell. He was never going to get out there safe though, so of course Muta and Vampiro do attack him when Chronic makes the save. And once again, you tell me, I mean, we didn't even talk about why they are called Chronic. You know what, let's not worry about it. When we do actually get some ingenuity. What a world. As Canadian Lance Storm had won the US title, he changed it from being called the United States Championship to the Canadian Championship. And yeah, like I say, I actually think that's pretty good. There's always a problem though, and we get two here, because he is fighting Mike Awesome, whose gimmick at the time is the Fat Chick Thriller. Or to break it right down, he just really likes overweight chicks. Don't get mad at me, that was the idea. We also have Jacques Rougeau as the special guest referee, because why wouldn't you want to in two different matches, when we learn that when it comes to the Canadian title, there's just a bunch of rules, which is you can just make them up whenever you want. So every single time Michael Awesome does win, Jacques goes, oh, I'm sorry. I know you think you did just get the 1, 2, 3, but we changed the rules, that doesn't count. The fact we did this to Lance Storm as well, who's like the most legitimate guy ever, is totally nuts. WCW had already pissed everybody off here because they had pretended the whole time that the special guest referee was going to be Bret Hart, and then you didn't get it. Then at the same time, you see a 3 count, then the match gets turned into a 5 count match. I just punched myself in the head. We go through about 79 of these until, of course, Rougeau just attacks Awesome, which allows Lance to be victorious. And I got mad again. It's Lance Storm. He's really talented. Just let him go. So this is proper 2 + 2 = potato, and go and listen to the fans at the end of this. They are just sitting on their hands, pondering to themselves why the hell they ever bought a ticket to begin with. We then maybe get the worst 5 minutes on the entire pay-per-view, because we are interviewing Kevin Nash, and he actually says, I don't know, man, if Bill Goldberg is going to be here, because the last I heard, he didn't want to do business, and he didn't want to follow the script. I mean, he didn't say script, but everybody else said script, so he may as well have said script. He then throws in that he's going to go over Scott Steiner anyway. That's why I just left. I just walked out of the room. I was like, I remember seeing this back in the day. I don't want to see it again. When Vampiro and the Great Muta win the tag titles. I don't care, man. Do you care anymore? Why was there so many tag team title matches on New Blood Rising? It has been 24 years and I still don't know. I will say that it's miles better than what followed this. It's when we are talking about rock bottom world championship wrestling moments. This has got to be in the top 10. Now, I'm sure you would have heard about this too because it was so ludicrous, but it was meant to be Kevin Nash versus Scott Steiner versus Bill Goldberg in a #1 contender match. But as Billy hadn't turned up at the arena, we just did Kev versus Scott. Eventually, Bill does get here though, and he runs to the ring. And this is when you get the real story of this contest, which once again is, are they going to stick to the script, or is somebody going to go business for themselves? And I'm not winding you up here. I am not exaggerating. This is what the commentary team keeps saying, which automatically tells you, well, this match may be a little bit real, but everything else you saw, well, it was just a pile of pants. It's also so damn confusing, because when Goldberg does arrive, he has a chair, and he's trying to attack Kevin Nash, because he believes that Nash is responsible for his car accident, and we're meant to think this is legitimate. But the car accident is also a storyline. I don't know what I'm meant to do with that. It also means that Goldberg is acting like he is hurt because of a fake car crash. And now my brain hurts. Somebody pull out my eyes. If only that was the proper down point, I think I'd be able to get over it. But eventually, Kevin goes to powerbomb Goldberg, who decides, I don't want to go up for your powerbomb, even though I meant to, and he leaves. And he bumps into Vince Russo on the way and he shouts at him, because this is supposed to be real and a shoot. Honestly, if I didn't stop watching WCW back in the day when this happened, more fool me. Poor Tony Schiavone then has to ponder whether or not Kevin Nash and Scott Steiner are going to start improvising. Mark Madden takes it down another notch. He was like, well, if I was Kev, I would have punched Goldberg right in the face to keep him in line. So they're still trying to convince you this has happened and nobody knows why. So his manager Majua then just punches Nash in the balls over and over again, but he may as well have a steel groin because he hits Scotty with the powerbomb and he just wins. So every single thing that you just saw had no point whatsoever. And it was the main event after this, and I'm just going to tell you, if it wasn't my job to keep watching, I would have stopped. It is Jeff Jarrett versus Booker T for the World Championship though, and at least they try. I mean, I'm sure they were aware about how silly the rest of the card was. They were trying to do their best. You also get a bunch of referee bumps, because of course you do, and at one point Booker T does give Jeff Jarrett the bookend through the table, and that would have been a big spot if we hadn't seen a table break on essentially every other match in the show. You also get Jarrett accidentally on purpose chair shotting a nothing referee when Booker does get the bookend and he gets the 1, 2, 3. Listen, Booker T was a really good wrestler, as he was going to prove when a year later he jumped to the WWE/F. And he did pretty alright there. So yes, this is genuinely one of the worst pay-per-views I've ever seen, but you should watch it if you do want to be flabbergasted. But don't say I didn't warn you. We are going back to 2017 for today's worst booking, and I think that's important to note because you could make the argument it took 8 years before we could get Bayley back to the point where she could be a proper babyface again. Now, I do agree with all the chat around Bayley. She does not get her flowers. She is criminally underrated. And if I was starting a wrestling promotion tomorrow, I would ring her up and say, oh, hi, would you like to come and wrestle for me? Now, actually, somebody else who has been fumbled here and there is also Alexa Bliss, who, of course, we haven't seen for a while. But yeah, way back when they were feuding, I don't know who was writing this thing, but it's basically gibberish. Now, Bayley had been doing all right on the main roster in 2016. I will always be that guy to say I don't really think the powers that be totally understood her character from NXT, because she was meant to be like a hero to kids, and then yeah, she got to Raw and SmackDown, and everyone went, oh, we'll just turn you into a child. It was really weird. When she did clash with Bliss though, somebody else decided, well, we should do one of those This Is Your Life segments, because of course The Rock and Mankind had done this during the Attitude Era, and because it had done mega ratings, we have to do it every 5 years or so. But I tell you this, if you actually do go back and watch it now, it has funny elements. It also goes on for a long ass time. I mean, you could cut 7 minutes out of it. And this one was a little different because there was no nicey nice here, and Alexa had put this together because she wanted to humiliate Bayley. Therefore, old teachers, friends, and ex-boyfriends arrived to say, man, she sucked at sports, and man, she was rubbish in school, and also, she was too close to her father. Thinking about this one for a while, it's like, it's nice to have a good relationship with your family. Who are we trying to offend? WWE had to make this creepy as well because one of her old partners was there, and he was like, yeah, when we used to go on dates, you brought daddy, and one time I accidentally kissed him. I was like, bro, I'm sorry, you can't accidentally kiss someone. If you were attracted to Bayley's dad, you should just admit it and move on with your life. The end of all this tale as well was Bayley's ex-boyfriend and one of her ex-friends just making out in the middle of the ring, because that's right, they had been cheating on her this whole entire time. And maybe this was designed to make you feel sympathetic to Bayley, but it was also such a train wreck of a segment, you just wanted to turn it off. It also was actually more proof of what we just talked about. Once again, WWE wanted to make Bayley cry because they thought she was like a 10-year-old. For goodness sake, she a grown-ass woman. This then continued because Alexa said, Bayley still plays with her childhood doll. And talk about irony now, because what was Alexa Bliss doing a few years after this? Playing with a damn doll called Lily. Also, it doesn't matter if you're 10, 20, 30, 40, or 97. If you have a nice, I don't know, sentimental relationship with some kind of puppet, then of course you should hang it around. The worst thing that people do when they become adults is forget their childhood roots. I don't know what we're talking about. This got so out of control, WWE even took shots at themselves, because we learned that Bayley, when she was younger, didn't like going out to parties because she wanted to stay home and watch Raw SmackDown. Yeah, what a geek, what a nerd. Why would you watch wrestling all the time? This is being said on the wrestling show. Oh man, it's hurting my brain. This too also went on for about 7 to 8 hours, and it is not a good watch. And look, both Alexa Bliss and Bayley have talked about this. They knew too. In fact, everybody knew, because when it was time to promote their match, did we see any clips of this? No, we did not. It was basically erased from history. I mean, it really did make Bales look like such a wet blanket, because even if you are 6, you know if somebody does push you too far, you're then allowed to whip their ass. Nobody would have watched and gone, oh man, I can't believe Bayley did that. We would have gone, yeah, this person has stepped way across the line and she needs some comeuppance. It really did take this idea of the lovable underdog and flush it down the toilet when finally Alexa Bliss went to Kurt Angle, who wasn't the GM at the time. It's like, listen, Kurt, I heard everything she said and I'm a little upset about this, so come the pay-per-view, I want to take on Alexa Bliss in a kendo stick on a pole match. I don't want to talk about on a pole matches here because I start thinking about Vince Russo and WCW. But yes, this too was stupid, but at least she could whip her butt. And that is exactly what should have happened. Bayley did get this stick of kendo and she should have just whacked Alexa Bliss for a while, but she didn't. She all of a sudden became a pacifist and basically said, no, I will not inflict violence in the middle of a wrestling match. So he wanted to call her up and say, Bayley, I think someone's told you the wrong thing. It then fell right through the floor too, because Alexa was like, all right, well, I'll do it. She totally destroyed Bayley and she beat her. So the whole time, especially if you were a Bayley fan, you were shouting at the television, fight back. Would you fight? You'll win if you fight back. And she didn't and she lost. I mean, we honestly couldn't have buried Bayley anymore if we tried, and that is one of these occasions where you can use this word, especially because, once again, every single thing Alexa Bliss had done, well, it deserves some kind of punishment, and she got off scot-free. You also have to go back to the name of the show, because it was Extreme Rules. You have to know what you're getting into here, otherwise, don't turn up to work today. Once again, get on the damn phone and be like, I'm sick, I can't come in, and even though nobody would believe you, but at least you wouldn't have to go through this. I mean, it really did just portray Bayley as someone that didn't have a backbone, when before this, she would just fight from underneath to such a degree, you were desperate for her to win. So I guess I'm repeating myself now, but we took the main point of her babyface character and we threw it out the window, because why would we want to do anything good with something that is good? That's a bad sentence. Because at one stage, Bayley definitely knew how to get people behind her, but very closely after this, all of a sudden she lost that support, and you can see it if you go watch the TV. Do you know what audiences started to do? Boo. Boo Bayley. The same Bayley that in NXT people were saying, oh, well, this is the next John Cena, or John Cena for girls, which is always a little bit wishy-washy, but you know what they were saying. And instead, nope, damn. It just goes to show what bad main roster booking can do. We totally destroyed everything that came before this. I mean, it's a masterclass in what not to do. Now, because Bayley is a genius, she totally felt this, and come 2019, she was probably stomping around backstage saying, listen, you know it, I knew it, I have to turn heel now, it's bad guy time. And in that sense, I suppose you could say that all of this was justified, because she did a 180 on everything. She looked different, she moved different, she wrestled different, she had a totally different presentation, to the point, I'm sure if you went to someone stupid and said, oh, this is Bayley's sister, they would have believed you. But it was also just so damn smart, because all of a sudden, the person you thought you never wanted to boo, well, she was so obnoxious, all you wanted to do was boo. I mean, there are a few people that have done such an amazing 180 with this success, and by the time she was the champion and she held that belt for ages, that's when everyone could see it. This Bayley, she know what the fluff she doing. So I kind of feel like a lot of people do take her for granted, because the title said, this really was bad booking, and to this day, I don't know who it was for. I mean, who was it meant to get over? Alexa Bliss, she didn't benefit either, because the whole time you could see internally, she was face-palming too. I feel sorry for both of them. Not that they need my sympathy, but it was shite. Don't forget as well that during the pandemic when WWE was really down on its luck, once again it was Bayley who climbed that damn ladder. And yes, she did that with Sasha Banks, of course, who's recently joined AEW, but that doesn't matter. It is such amazing turnaround. I'm going to end this video by just clapping. And that's really weird. Seriously, man, we do not give Bayley enough love. She is one of a kind. If you ever wondered why CM Punk kind of got fed up with WWE in 2014 and left, that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. Calling it the worst booking ever may be a bit of a stretch, because after a very topsy-turvy 2011, CM Punk would go on to do a record-setting WWE title reign, or at least one that was very surprising for the modern day. As we had seen plenty of times before, though, with other superstars, even though CM Punk was the champion, he was never really treated like the top guy. Sometimes, in fact, often, it wasn't even in the main event. So where do we start? Well, at the start. Goodness sake. Because CM Punk did indeed sign with WWE back in 2005, and if you weren't around then, trust me, it was totally huge, because Punk had made his name on the indie scene, didn't really look like a quote-unquote typical WWE guy, so when he did get his foot in the door, all of a sudden a bunch of other people were like, wait a minute, if he can do it, maybe I can do it too. So he really did help change the game. Instantly, there was clearly some confusion between Punk himself and the powers that be, because he did find himself in OVW. But actually, in hindsight, this was like a sliding doors moment, because do you know who he'd meet down there that would essentially change the shape of his career? None other than Paul Heyman. Because he realised instantly that Punk could be a top guy, so he pushed him as such in his own brand. And if you've ever wondered, where does the phrase Paul Heyman guy come from? Well, CM Punk, if you can believe it, was one of the OGs. I know I'm not cool enough to say that, but I did it anyway. Eventually it meant those in the WWE system couldn't ignore this anymore, so he was brought up to the main roster, where people would say things like, CM Punk only knows how to act like a pro wrestler. 20 years on, I still don't know what that means, and essentially the same thing that was going to happen in the future started happening in the present. No matter what was going on behind the scenes, everybody, when it came to the fans, loved CM Punk. It meant that we did get way more than we were expecting, because in 2008 he did win the Money in the Bank briefcase when he cashed it in on Batista to become the World Heavyweight Champion. And then 1 year later in 2009, he did this again against Jeff Hardy. Don't forget, he did win back-to-back Money in the Bank ladder matches too. So he was cooking. So you certainly couldn't say this was bad, and it was the same with the Straight Edge Society and the New Nexus, because Punk just knew how to make those groups work. When, of course, we do fast forward just a little bit to 2011 and the summer of Punk. Now, it is kind of interesting to look at today, because WWE knew that they needed brand new challenges for John Cena, who was running out of opponents, and when you listen to the fan reaction, you would have had to have been crazy to ignore it. Everybody wanted CM Punk. So he did indeed beat John Cena in a non-title match on Raw, when he went on to beat Alberto Del Rio to become the #1 contender. And that was it. The Cena-Punk feud was go. To try and convey this idea that maybe, just maybe, he was able to beat Cena as well, this was during a time where he was Super Jonathan, and he won all the time, we did decide to give CM Punk a live microphone on Monday Night Raw, and we told him, hey man, why don't you say whatever the flub you want? Now in reality, this entire promo had been planned beforehand, but you know the idea. CM Punk took reality and the world of fiction, and he mushed them up together, to the point millions of people watch this going, oh my gosh, he's totally talking the truth, he's gone off script. The fact that he threw in the little nugget that his contract was about to expire, which was also factual, and well, the pipe bomb was born. We had a brand new megastar on our hands, and it's not like it happened overnight, but over the weeks and months, people really did fall in love with the voice of the voiceless. The noise was so huge, eventually nobody could deny what we had to do, but you know the deal with this, I'm essentially repeating myself now. If you are a wrestler within WWE, and you get over more than management wants you to get over, they'll always hold you back just a little bit. And the irony to this is that if it happened in 2024, I don't actually think WWE would do it anymore. It all peaked, you could argue, when we got to the Money in the Bank pay-per-view in 2011 that was live from CM Punk's hometown of Chicago. And this was like Hogan versus Rock from WrestleMania 18. It didn't matter what kind of moves they were doing. The crowd was so loud, you just felt it deep down in your bones, and you were absolutely desperate to see who was going to get the victory, because it couldn't possibly be CM Punk. He was about to leave. I can only assume that WWE felt like they were backed into a corner too, and that maybe these Chicago fans would riot when he did pin John Cena and he became the WWE champion, when he sat on Barry Barricade and he kissed the WWE goodbye and he ran off with the title. This was an all-time moment. I mean, he even put this in the fridge, which caused a right stir on social media, and this should have been the beginning of something excellent. Then it all kind of went flat. Because even though in reality Punk had re-signed, obviously otherwise we never would have done this, we just had to be patient. And hey, let's go back to the pipe bomb. Maybe CM Punk could do a random appearance at Ring of Honor. It's not like ROH was going to threaten WWE in 2011. We didn't do this at all. And 2 weeks after he had run away, CM Punk was back. The really strange thing is that during that time we had crowned Rey Mysterio the WWE champion, and then John Cena had just randomly beaten him, and then Punk was here looking at John Cena in the face. It's like, oh my gosh, it's on fast forward. Now look, when he did come back, he came out to Cult of Personality, so let's not pretend that CM Punk didn't get a lot from this. But everything should have been so damn obvious, and instead, when we should have gone left, we kept going right. Now there was some hope here, because during the interim, Punk had just turned up at some random Comic-Con and yelled at Triple H, and surprise, surprise, everybody went crazy about that on Twitter. So it also made sense that when we got into the ring, Triple H and CM Punk started to fall out with each other, especially because it was the game going, oh man, who got you that brand new deal? You better respect me. And even at this juncture too, I'm not going to get mad at it, because seriously, you can see it on the network or YouTube. The promos between these two guys were actually quite cutting. Kind of made you go, hee hee hee, I think they actually hate each other. Cena eventually would interject himself into it, because of course we had two champions and we had to sort it out which brought us to SummerSlam. Now you do have to remember that at this point in time, John Cena could have lost in 82 milliseconds and it wouldn't have mattered. He was John Cena, and the idea here should have been to get CM Punk over as much as possible. And we did the complete opposite. Again. Now these two did have a really good match that I still enjoy today, and Punk did get the victory. But this was only after special guest Triple H hadn't noticed that Jonathan's foot was under the ropes. So right away there was shenanigans. It then went totally crazy because Alberto Del Rio was able to cash in his briefcase, become the world champion, because Kevin Nash right after the match had come out from the fans and powerbombed CM Punk. And even though this happened like 13 years ago, this is still my face. I don't understand it. Now, sure, there was the relationship with Triple H, which obviously we were going to play off, but it left everyone going, well, wait a minute, I don't want to see that feud. I don't want to see Alberto as the champ. So there was just too many asterisks here, which continued when we got to Night of Champions, because we didn't do CM Punk versus Kevin Nash because Big Sexy got injured. So instead, we did Triple H versus CM Punk. And of course, who won? Triple Flippin' H. The same thing happened at Hell in a Cell, where it was John Cena versus Alberto Del Rio versus CM Punk, with Punk taking the pin. And then we got to Vengeance when he was taking on the Awesome Truth, and I'm going to give you one guess as to who lost. Even at this point, WWE realized, well, we're going to have to do the singles one-on-one rematch between him and Alberto Del Rio, and surprise, surprise, you could already figure out what happened with that one too. So essentially what we did here, as soon as we had made Punk the champion, is that we beat him, and we beat him, and we beat him, and you know what it achieved? It pissed the fans off. It also flushed all this goodwill down the drain. So when you look at it now, it is proper 2 + 2 = potato stuff. Doesn't make any sense. It meant that eventually we did have to get into the relationship with Paul Heyman and turn CM Punk heel. And while this was an absolute joy, let's not pretend otherwise, it was also hitting the reset button because we screwed up. I don't want to say this fell into their lap because Punk had done the work, but we were still going in the exact opposite direction of what was obvious. And again, I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but if somebody did walk up to me and say, you know they did that on purpose, I would be like, yeah, I bet they did. This is why now when people do return to 2011, they do have a weird taste in their mouth, especially with Kevin Nash. Now look, I'm a massive Diesel fan. I think he's totally great, but to this day, I still don't understand why he did turn up and powerbombed CM Punk. I mean, we hadn't even seen Big Kev in the WWE since 2004. This was essentially about putting a bunch of ideas in a hat and just picking them out, and whatever landed on the floor, that's what we did. Obviously, this was not only the end of the summer of Punk, but it was the end of 2011 in general, and it just feels so nuts now, because it was all there, and we just decided not to do it. As far as I'm concerned, Roman Reigns is all time. Every single thing he has done since becoming the tribal chief makes him one hell of a legendary performer. And today, we're going to go back through his wild ride. And just quickly, in case you're going, Simon, why are you sitting on a weird sofa in the middle of nowhere? I'm currently touring America with the last match because I'm a weird guy. But screw that. Let's talk about the head of the table. Because yes, if we do turn the clocks back to 2020, where all of a sudden Roman was like, oh, hi, I know what to do. It's been so perfect, it kind of makes everything before this utterly baffling. Now, of course, the reason we're doing it right now is because Roman Reigns recently lost his world championship after 1,316 days. And when you do take it all in and you just put it in your Tootsie Toes, I think this is a conversation that should be studied by historians. What else are they going to talk about? Now, first and foremost, let's not pretend that at some point in time, fans didn't want Roman Reigns. If you go back to the 2014 Royal Rumble, everybody was like, man, screw that Batista guy. We want to give it to that dude in the Shield that barely says anything, because look at his wonderful hair, look at his wonderful beard. That's one hell of a good-looking dude. But the crazy thing is, 1 year on, we did get to Philadelphia, and the big dog was booed out of the place, even though The Rock, his cousin, which obviously ties into 2024, ran to the ring to try and get him over. And do you know why this didn't work? Because it was just one of many stunts that management was trying to pull, thinking that us human being nerd wrestling fans are idiots. And while we can be a bit annoying, we're not stupid. It doesn't take a genius to figure it out. It is just nice and simple, 2 + 2 = potato. What we were trying to do with Roman was bad, and it didn't make any sense. Now, it really did kick off after this point we've just been talking about, because when WWE finally decided to break up the Shield, when Seth Rollins got that chair and he smashed Roman on the back, we had decided, yes, we are going to make Roman Reigns into our brand new John Cena. Problem is, as you probably figured out, Roman was not John Cena, and anytime you try and recreate anybody else in somebody else's image, well, it's just kind of crappy to watch. I mean, how the company hadn't learned from this, I don't know, because you can go all the way back to the 90s when all of a sudden Kevin Nash, Big Diesel, he became a good guy too. And for some reason, Vince McMahon decided, well, now you have to act like Hulk Hogan, because it worked for him, and why wouldn't it work for you? And I'll tell you why, because Diesel, as his name suggests, was such a cool dude, and then he was selling for all of the heels. He was like, he's 7'1", I just want to watch him kick ass. And it was the case with Roman as well, because he had to smile and nod through everything until, yes, we got to that infamous promo where he did utter the lines, suffer and succotash, and for a lot of people, even today, that was the end of it. And if you do want to get into the nitty-gritty about why this wasn't clicking with fans all across the world, it's because it was painfully obvious one Roman Reigns or Joe Anoa'i was putting on an act. I mean, there was nothing real about what he was putting out there, so even though sure, he could have a bang with Bryan Danielson, and sure, we tried to create some sympathy when Sheamus cashed in his Money in the Bank briefcase and stole his World Championship, it was like, well, this is just narrative. This is just a tale. There's nothing believable in you, Roman Reigns, so how the hell am I meant to follow you all the way to Mount Mordor and throw in the damn ring? That's a different book. I mean, it was just constant nonsense, much like when John Cena wrote poopy on JBL's limousine. If you're now saying to yourself, Simon, that didn't happen, look into my eyes, it most definitely did. The real mistake then came because WWE were actively aware, like in some kind of meta-universe, that Roman wasn't connected with the WWE universe, but rather than just accept that and change things and head off in a different direction, they then started booking him, knowing that the fans knew this, and knowing that the fans that they knew that. So all of a sudden, everything you were watching was utterly perplexing. Do you remember that WrestleMania where we all presumed that Reigns was going to win? And then we had Brock Lesnar retain, only to get to Saudi Arabia, when we did coronate Roman, but we did it in just a stupid way. It was like, why? Why am I watching this for entertainment? Why are you making it so damn difficult? Now, in hindsight, if that had been a low light, we probably could have got away with this, but as we talked about in another video, eventually we got to that dog food angle. And what people like to say about this one is, oh, well, it was meant for kids. Don't insult children that way. Even young human beings knew that this was absolute garbage, because trash is trash, even if you try and serve it with some ketchup. I mean, even Roman himself knew that this was absolute bottom of the barrel stuff. So what did he do? He turned around and he said to HQ, listen, I'm going to go home for a while, I'll be in touch. There were other fumbles along the way too. The biggest one, as far as I'm concerned, is when Roman Reigns finally defeated The Undertaker at WrestleMania, and we all remember this. He came out of Raw and he stood there for 100 minutes as everyone went boo, 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 and they weren't saying boo earns, when he just said, this is my yard now, and he walked off. Like, it's genuinely one of the best promos we have had in the modern age, and if the week after this we had triggered the Tribal Chief character, well, it hurts me deep down in my soul, because it would have been one of the best turns, and I mean it, ever. Instead, though, we just dragged Roman through all of that nonsense with John Cena, where he was absolutely destroyed on the microphone. Fine speech, kid. And don't forget, this also tied into the weird world that WWE was presenting us with, because they knew that John Cena would destroy him on the microphone, and yet they wanted to see this just so the fans could react to Roman and go, well, we don't like you, even though the ultimate goal was for WWE to have you like Roman Reigns. And if you can understand that, drop me a comment below. Whatever you write will be absolute gibberish. Ultimately, it doesn't actually matter, because eventually Reigns got his own way. And look at everything we have been doing the last few years. It has been absolutely tremendous. And I suppose you could say that it culminated at WrestleMania 40, where he did drop his title to Cody Rhodes. So really, I think it just summed up what the company was like back then when Vince was in charge. He actively didn't care what you thought, and he would just do whatever was going to entertain him. And again, go watch Raw and go watch SmackDown. It's night and day right now, and dare I say it, it actually makes a lot more sense. Without this switch too, who the hell knows what happens when Cody Rhodes came back, so I think the chemistry between him and Roman Reigns was absolutely part of everything we have just seen, and it's just popped into my brain too. We've talked about all of this, and we haven't even chatted about that time when Triple H just popped back and he became the world champion as well. And do you know what WWE did? They wanted you to boo the game, and they wanted you to cheer Roman Reigns, and there was Hunter walking around, crotch chopping him right in the face and leaving him laying on Monday Night Raw. So surprise, surprise, who was everybody behind? The man with 3 H's. This stuff is painful these days. I mean, honestly, we talked about kids, a kid could have done better. That's why I'm really confident with the new regime, because I don't actually think we would do this again, because look at what happened with the Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits. Now, obviously, they are not on the level of Roman Reigns, although Bob probably should be, but as soon as they realised, oh, wait a minute, we tried to turn them heel, heel, but nobody's booing them. In a matter of weeks, they had gone back to being babyface, and it just benefited everyone, especially if you are going to these events. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm being listened to, and that makes you feel good in your tootsie toe. I mean, if we had done that with Roman in 2016, my gosh, the stories that we would have been able to tell. Maybe it's probably best that we don't think about it, because my word, we wasted so much time. It's kind of bonkers if you do want to go back and re-witness this for yourself now, because you can actually see the internal struggle both on Monday and Friday night. I mean, the McMahons even came out on TV and apologized for everything. They said, we're really sorry, we understand that the TV is a bit crappy right now, but please forgive us because we're going to change. And then nothing changed. It was exactly the same, including Roman Reigns. So where did we end up? A boy who cried wolf scenario. And from that point on, really, until we have had this big switcheroo, I don't think they ever got the trust back. I just think sometimes you've got to go with the obvious, and we did the exact opposite ever since Seth did take that steel weapon and smashed Roman right in the back of the head. I mean, it was just try and fail, and we'll try the same thing again and fail. And I'm sure you've heard this 1,000 times, so I will be 1001. That is most definitely the definition of insanity. I also think it's important to throw in there that it's a massive testament to Roman Reigns as a professional wrestler, because so many other people would have fallen by the wayside here, but he is so skilled and he understood where he wanted to go that he was able to turn this around, and again, if we are talking about the modern era, became one of the superstars of a generation. I mean, there'll be some people that have only been watching WWE for 5 years, and when they're 30, 35, 40 years old, who's the person they're going to say, do you know who got me into sports entertainment? It's going to be Roman Reigns. And not the big dog, it'll be the tribal chief. So really the man was just totally miscast, and no blame should be put on his shoulders. But actually, I will say, if you are somebody who wants to sit there and just feel awkward inside, like you do when you watch Curb Your Enthusiasm, then yes, you should go back and watch 2016 Roman Reigns. You will not believe it. Even then though, with all those silly feuds and all those silly promos and all those silly events, Roman still managed to main event 6 WrestleManias before he did go through the big change. So once again, don't knock that dude, he's killing it. Seriously though, hopefully the next time this does come along, we won't take so long before we do realise it. Although I shall leave you how I always leave you when we talk about those things. The evidence was right there all the way back in 1996. And yes, it does tie into WrestleMania 40, because who was one of the most famous of these cases? It was Dwayne Johnson, it was Rocky Maivia, it was The Rock. And when we finally went, hey, the fans are telling him that he should die, maybe he should be a bad guy, he went on to not only be one of the biggest stars in the world, but he recently came back to WWE, and as he himself said, you can't argue with him, he made wrestling cool again. So the Roman Reigns story will continue on. I don't think he is done, although I do think he'll be pretty much a part-timer from now on. But again, that guy has totally earned it. While there is some criticisms in the sense that, oh my gosh, he didn't defend that championship as much as we thought he should have done, I think he used that to emphasize his persona and just to draw a line under it. Even though his early booking absolutely did suck, when he took over along with Paul Heyman, some of the bust stuff we have seen in a long time. Dean Ambrose's heel turn in 2018 was destined to fail as soon as we did pull the trigger. And why? Because of the day that we did it. Hello friends, and that's right, we are doing another video about bad booking, and we're going all the way back to the Raw on the 22nd of October from that year. And you may remember this date, because I tell you, it was an absolute roller coaster. As most people remember, this was the evening when Roman Reigns came out and said, hey, my real name is Joe Anoa'i, I have leukemia, and I have to go away for a while. Now, not only was he the world champion at the time, but he was the biggest star in WWE, and we remember all the controversy around him. So when he came out and said this, tell you, nobody really knew what to do. It was terrifying. Now, the internet was filled with well-wishers, although some people had to go, I don't like the character, but, which is always absolutely ridiculous, and you don't need to say it, but at least it sent the message out there that every single wrestling fan just wanted Roman to return to the ring, and we could put all of this behind us. Whereas WWE had a different idea. Because to try and tie this in with the storyline, friends Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose decided they would reunite for the evening as The Shield, and they would challenge for the Raw Tag Team Championships, which were held by Dolph Ziggler and Drew McIntyre. And given what those two people are doing now, that is a really weird team. Unbelievably, they were able to achieve this as well, so I guess that was kind of nice. They had paid a tribute to their buddy, and almost instantly, Dean dropped Seth Rollins with the Dirty D's. He absolutely whipped his ass when he exposed the concrete floor, and yep, he gave him another DDT into that thing. As I'm sure you figured out, in case you've never seen this before, Dean Ambrose had gone bad guy. Now, if we actually do go back to this era, Dean Ambrose turning heel wasn't the worst idea in the world, and in fact many people had been calling for it because they felt the babyface Dean Ambrose had been run into the ground because WWE always treated him like a goof. but nobody thought that we should do it after Roman had talked about his news, because that just felt totally gratuitous, especially because, and the article is still up on the website because I went and read it, and every single occasion WWE kept tying this back into Roman Reigns and being like, oh, well, how would the big dog feel about this? I was like, well, I don't think he'd really give a shit right now. He has much bigger problems. So the big takeaway that everybody wanted you to have was, oh, I'm doubly mad at him, given when he'd chosen to do this, as we sat and waited week after week for Dean to say these words out of his mouth. And instead he would get a microphone and say, do you want to know why I decided to screw over Seth Rollins? I was like, yes, I really would like that. And he said, well, you don't deserve to know, so I'm not going to tell you. And he meant this because we're sat here like 6 years later and he's never actually spoken about why. Now, of course, this was nothing to do with him, and it was the classic Vince McMahonism of, if I don't say anything for a while, maybe fans will forget. But we don't forget, we're like goldfish, and we're also massive nerds. And the real tipping point is when Dean actually had to talk about Roman's sickness and how this turned into what he had done. This was the most typical thing ever, and I also want to point out once again, I know this didn't come from Jon Moxley's mouth, but he actually insinuated that the reason Roman Reigns had gotten sick is because of all the bad things he had done in the Shield. I remember watching this back in the day, and I had one of those fleeting thoughts, and I was like, I don't think this is why I watch sports entertainment. Maybe I should tune into something else. Backstage interviewers would then even ask Ambrose, well, what if Roman heard that you say this? You may make him even worse. And it just fell down the well so quickly because I don't know who this was meant to be appealing to. I mean, blending reality and fiction is one thing, and it can do very well in wrestling, but this just felt so distasteful, especially because once again, most people were sat around going, well, I don't care about this. I just want to know that Joe Anoa'i is okay. Why have we decided to present the information like this? It also meant that this brand new Dean Ambrose character was just evolving into nothingness because he wasn't allowed to actually have a real reason about why he chose to do what he did. When somebody came up with the idea, well, what about if he goes from town to town and he's not a very happy camper because he's worried about getting a disease? Look at me right in the eye. Am I blinking? No. Is this a joke? No. Am I kidding? No. I'm being completely honest with you. But he would actually tell people that they stink as if this was 1983 and said during one promo, I literally throw up when I think about how much you guys like Seth Rollins. So really, why was anyone going to boo this? Even if you did smell, you'd be like, all right, he makes a good point. And look, once again, the real life Jon Moxley knew how bad this was. Just go and read his book. I mean, why do you think he left the company the following year? He was like, this is the kind of shit you're giving me? Man, I will actually go and do anything else. It was when we arrived in Milwaukee when this really fell through the floor, because rather than turn up at the arena, Dean did indeed go find a doctor and brought a cameraman for some reason too, which is kind of sick and twisted in many ways. And we had to watch while he got injections into his tuchus or his bottom. He was terrified about getting an illness from bad hygiene. And once again, we saw all this happening in front of our eyes because, of course, we were trying to make one man laugh. And I'm pretty sure you can figure out who that was. And it was just so lame because we'd even gone to the effort to put fake injection marks on Dean's arm to make you, oh, maybe this is real. And by the time he was shouting to this camera, oh man, I love taking a needle into the bottom. Well, what else are we meant to do? I mean, even kids knew this was crap. Don't insult children. Just when we thought this couldn't get any more idiotic, we jumped to the next Raw in Texas. And Dean Ambrose came out with a bunch of security guards wearing gas masks. I remember this too. I was like, please, don't let him walk out with a gas mask as well. And I'm sure you can figure it out. He did do this because once again, even though he had been vaccinated, now he was trying to protect his nose and his lungs too. I mean, I guess if you are freaked out about this, you would do it. But again, this is meant to be wrestling. It just brings me back to this idea constantly about what fan was going to boo him. Well, they weren't booing him. Do you know what the crowd used to cheer when Dean Ambrose came out during this time? You sold out. And that's something else I don't understand. What did he sell out to? He just doesn't want to get the measles. It all led to the TLC pay-per-view where he actually did beat Seth Rollins for the Intercontinental Championship. But if you had watched the build to this, you'd never know that belt was on the line because it was completely forgotten about. And look, this is another reason why in 2024, Gunther having that amazing reign was so important, because back in 2018, there's a pile of shit. At least we have some trivia when we get to the next week's Raw, because when Dean Ambrose did walk down the aisle with his goons once again, do you know who was under one of the masks? It was the future Powerhouse Hobbs. I mean, he wasn't Powerhouse Hobbs then, but give it a couple of years, he'd find himself. No one cared about this though, because yes, we didn't know that it was him, but also something else happened here, and hidden under another one of these masks was Seth Rollins. Surprise, surprise, he beat up Dean Ambrose. Most people sat there watching going, man, I think we can end all this now. I'm not particularly enjoying it. Less than a month after this too, Dean actually lost the IC title to Bobby Lashley on Raw, which also featured Seth Rollins in a triple threat match. And in case you need it for your brain, yes, this is also when Bobby Lashley's big gimmick was he was going to show you his ass over and over again. So I just want to bring that point back up. In 2018, who the flub would take the IC title serious? But now Jon Moxley too once again has gone into detail about this over and over again, including how when he used to get these promos, the word pooper scooper would come up a lot and he would have to go to the ends of the earth to try and get it out of there because he once again knew only one person was going to find this funny and it was going to completely destroy his credibility. Now can you imagine being a wrestler in WWE and you want to plan your match, you want to do a good job, you are more worried about the word pooper scooper? I mean, that is going to put you in a pretty bad mood. So the whole thing was pretty awful, and Seth Rollins was actually interviewed by Yahoo Sports a year later, and he talked about this, and he said, the way that affected Ambrose, that wasn't really his best look. No one wanted to see us fight each other. We'd been through that. It didn't feel very good. I was upset. He was clearly upset, and the people clearly wanted to see us be brothers. They wanted to see us come back together and be close. I mean, yeah, I guess that was one part of it, Seth, but there's all the other dumb stuff too. We didn't want to see any of that, because once again, it was absolute shit. I would actually go as far to say this was offensive too, because yes, we were dealing with a real-life leukemia situation here, but thankfully we have moved on from this and then some. Because Roman Reigns these days is the tribal chief, and Dean Ambrose is smashing it in AEW as Jon Moxley, but honestly, sometimes people think, oh, I'm going to go back and watch this stuff. Do not watch this angle. Do not watch this gimmick. Do not watch this storylines. It is 6 months of your life you will never get back. You'd actually be better off watching the floor. So do that with me now. I obviously have some floor down here. We can just stare at it, and then we can get to doing some of the other stuff down the line. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. So let's just get this started off in the right way. If WWE had treated that Eater of Worlds persona right, that could have been the gimmick that Bray Wyatt rode out for his entire career. As we know, we didn't do this, and we went the other way, 2 + 2 = potato. Instead, WWE decided to beat him and then beat him and then beat him some more, to the point it got so bad, he had to reinvent himself, which he did do when it came to The Fiend, and he totally smashed it again. Old Bray here hitting doubleheaders. For whatever reason though, the powers that be just didn't get it. Which brings us to this night in question. Now to double down on this, in case you weren't around at the time, when Bray Wyatt in this role did turn up in NXT, everyone was like, well, this is ready-made, this is totally cooked, you could put this on the main roster tomorrow, and everybody could understand how we could fit in. In fact, there was a buzz around this, or a buzzard. Sorry, I shouldn't have done it. Now, given he did go 2 for 2, I think eventually management were like, well, we've got to do something more with him now, which is when he finally challenged Seth Rollins for the WWE title. But that led to Hell in a Cell 2019. Now, if you've never seen this match and you're being like, oh man, I better go check it out, listen to your old pal Simon. Never do that. It is not good. This is mainly because we just didn't do what we should have done, and we thought out every single other alternative as opposed to just saying, let's give Bray the belt. Meaning, in a Hell in a Cell, when the stipulation is you can do whatever you want to your opponent, the referee saw Seth Rollins hit Wyatt or The Fiend with a toolbox and said, nope, you're not allowed to carry on. And do you know what every single person in that arena did? They went boo, boo, and they weren't saying boo words. I mean, the thing that really dragged it down is that we had seen other Hell in a Cells that were way more vicious than this one, but also The Fiend was meant to be a demon. And if you've got a demon in the ring and you're selling him as an unstoppable monster, why would taking a giant spanner and cracking him in the head have any effect whatsoever? Also, who's this damn official? What kind of power does he have? It's ridiculous. It really did flub over Seth as well, because he was meant to be a good guy here, but for some reason he took all of the brunt, and within a few months he had to go heel. And it took a long ass time before he could go back to the good side, and he's talked about this too. He knows it was redonkulous, because you'd have to be blind. But that's not fair either. Stevie Wonder, he could sit there and he'd know too. Now he did take us to Crown Jewel 2019, where everyone just decided, oh, let's get it done, when finally Bray Wyatt did indeed defeat Seth Rollins and he became the champion. Now it's fair to say we totally missed our peak, but you know the saying, better late than never. This is when the ever trustworthy Bryan Daniel was shifted into proceedings, and he had some really good matches with Bray. Then for some reason Wyatt just beat The Miz for some reason, but hey, at least he was getting W's. When we got to the Royal Rumble and we had that strap match against the Yes Man, honestly, that is some good old pro wrestling, and it proved that we could make all this stuff work. It also meant The Fiend was now finally established, and I think we all sat around going, okay, well, this isn't so bad. Now we can just ride this through to WrestleMania, and we can decide what to do there. But we didn't do that, did we? We couldn't help ourselves. Threw us back to Saudi Arabia for the Super Showdown 2020 event, when Goldberg had arrived and he challenged The Fiend, and after some super serious spears and a weird jackhammer, he beat him in about 5 minutes. We all just stared off into the abyss thinking, why would you do this? You must not like me. Now, there were so many questions here, especially because Bill had just turned up and gone, oh, geese title shot. There was no justification to this. But also, we had got the roles reversed. Like, I understand that Goldberg had made a career of smashing people, but this was The Fiend. If anybody was going to win in like 180 seconds, it should have been the other guy. The fallout was nuts as well, because all of a sudden people were saying, oh man, The Fiend was meant to win this, but when we changed our minds, mostly because apparently Vince McMahon saw the number that Goldberg did on SmackDown when he randomly turned up. He started going, oh, money, draw ratings, and everything like that. So he switched the rules. Now, Bill himself has disputed that. It's only fair to put it out, and I do have the quote down here, which I understand is in a weird position. But talking to Shaq Wrestling, he said, who the hell am I, as a part-time guy, to come in and demand anything? Truly, I'm not. And all of this happened above his pay grade. He was just doing what he had been told, and when he was flying out to Saudi, yeah, as far as he was concerned, he was taking the L. And there clearly was some idea that Goldberg couldn't look weak in front of The Fiend, and I hate that word in pro wrestling, because when he did confront him, he was just like, you think I'm going to be scared of this gimmick? No, I'm not. Now, this really irked me, because Seth Rollins had sold it like he was a little bit terrified, and everybody ragged on him. But here is the deal. If you do have a spooky wookie character, you have to be spooked a little bit. Otherwise, why have a spooky wookie character to begin with? Fans weren't happy with this at all, even though the idea after this was, well, look at the marquee for WrestleMania 36. Goldberg versus Roman Reigns is just going to sell more tickets. Now, look, maybe that is true, but your audience doesn't care about that. They care about the characters that they invested in. We were invested in The Fiend. It really then fell through the floor, because of course we got to WrestleMania 36, and the pandemic was here, so Roman Reigns wasn't even on this show, and given that we were entering new territory when there were no rules, we probably could have kept the belt on Bray Wyatt and just let him have it for ages, and taken it day by day, taking it week by week, taking it month by month. I mean, we didn't have any fans, you could have had some fun with it. Other wrestlers felt offended by this too, and EC3 even said, this was the day when I fell out of love with wrestling. Now, maybe that's a little bit too much. It's just an angle gone awry. But still, that's how much it pissed people off. Because can you imagine if The Fiend had defeated Goldberg and then, I don't know, got on to WrestleMania to beat Braun Strowman, I suppose? Even if you had have reversed that, at least he would have held that title for a little while. I don't understand why we did this. I also think it's quite hard to look back at this now, given that Bray Wyatt did pass away so early and so tragically, because as we kind of said at the start of the video, it just goes to show that we never really did right by him, and despite that, he still had a Hall of Fame career. Now that is someone with an incredible brain and thinking outside the box and just being so damn creative. So on the one hand, you're like, man, you absolutely smashed it, but on the other, well, it's a little bit like you were held back by the red tape. Given that we were trying to catch up after all of this as well, eventually Braun Strowman was feuding with The Fiend, and they had that swamp match. Then you move a couple of months on, and Roman Reigns was back, and we started the whole tribal chief thing, and wouldn't it have been so much better, once again, I'm repeating myself now, if Wyatt held that championship, and it was Reigns that came back and was like, now I'm gonna smash and crash you, whatever the hell he spoke about. But no, Goldberg had to beat him, honestly. It was about 3.5 minutes in Saudi Arabia as well. And you can say whatever you want about those shows, and there's a lot to say about them. But especially in 2020, they felt like glorified house shows. And this is what we decided to do. I'll never get it, man. I'll never be able to make heads and tails of it. Even I know this was dumb, and look at me, I'm an idiot. Personally though, I don't think we should put it on the shoulders of Goldberg. If you do go and watch that interview, which I did do before recording this video, he actually seems quite upset that that rumor ever got out there to begin with. So really the mistake does lie with whoever wrote this down in a book and greenlit the thing. Pretty sure we all know who that was. I can even understand why some people wanted to go with Roman Reigns versus Goldberg, especially with an event like WrestleMania. Let's tie it into WrestleMania 40. The Rock came back, the flubbing Rock, and because we read the tea leaves, we still stuck with Roman versus Cody because it was the correct and the right thing to do. Look, no offense to Goldberg and Roman Reigns and Bray Wyatt, but none of them were the people's champion. We should have changed tack back then too. I think what gets people properly sad in their tootsie toes as well is that at this juncture we realised, oh man, not only did we screw up the Eat of the Worlds, we just screwed up The Fiend too. And And you should never have done that to Bray Wyatt twice. I mean, you shouldn't have done it in the first time. So I'm gonna say it one last time. We really didn't understand what the flub we had. Bobby Lashley is awesome. I mean, just look at the guy. Now, as we know, he can go in the ring, but even if he couldn't, when you look like a real life superhero, sometimes in wrestling, I'm happy to sit back, put my hands on my hips in a weird way, and just appreciate you running wild and kicking people's asses. For some reason though, back in 2018, somebody in WWE woke up and went, I think I'm going to try and ruin Bobby Lashley's career today. And yep, indeedy, they gave him one of the worst booking decisions ever. Sami Zayn was involved in this too, and as we know, he's a top tier talent as well. And that's why both of them deserve a massive round of applause in 2024, because go and listen to the reactions that they are getting today. And this is because they're presented in their best light, and not in, well, whatever this was, like a child wrote it. In fact, that's an insult to a kid. Now, 6 years ago, Bobby Lashley had only recently returned to the company, whereas Sami Zayn was knee-deep in his bad guy run. So I can understand this. I get how we got here. You do have two guys, they need a feud, put them together. It all began when Bobby Lashley sat down to do an interview with Renee Young, the now Renee Paquette, I suppose because we were trying to humanize him a bit more. So she asked him about his family, and I suppose like most normal people would do, Bob started to tell us about his sisters. All right? Lots of people have siblings. We got some serious info too, because there was Kathy, there was Francis, and there was Jessica. And all of a sudden, Bob started to give us some really, really weird information. Because Kathy was attached to her mother's broom or something. Jess was all about using a towel as a security blanket, whereas Francis wouldn't go anywhere without their dad's army helmet. And Bobby also told a story about one time he had stolen that as a joke, and now look at this scar under my eye. That's what Francis did. So I was like, flub me, all the Lashleys are nuts. Young also must have been told to sell this like something was going on, because it was so uncomfortable, and therefore it was uncomfortable to watch. Given this wasn't Garth Marenghi's Dark Place, I don't think this is the vibe we were going for. Lashley then finished all this by saying that he loved his sisters very much when we got to Raw the following week, and Sami Zayn walked out and was like, ha, I know all of this is lies. Now, okay, let's pretend Bobby Lashley had made all of this up. He did a sit-down interview with Renee Young and decided, man, I need some more interesting fake facts here. I will tell a lie. Who cares? Why do I care if Bobby Lashley lied about his sisters, but apparently it was the worst thing ever. Sami wouldn't let it lie though, so he did indeed say that 7 days later he would bring the sisters to Raw. I remember watching this, and do you know what I did? I audibly went, oh please, for the love of everything, no. This does indeed bring us to the 21st of May episode on Raw, and we should have known instantly it was going to be a disaster, because who walked out? It was 3 men dressed up like women. Yes, this is the decision that WWE made. Who the flub is it for? They had all the items that Bobby had mentioned in his interview too. But of course, dun dun dun, there was a secret reason behind all of them, and Sam had figured it out. For Kathy only carried around this broom to defend herself against Bobby Lashley. Francis only had the helmet because apparently Bob used to enjoy hitting her on the head, so she wore it as protection. Whereas Jessica had this towel to cry so much because Bobby Lashley was so mean. Straight away I was like, well, why didn't you just have a box of tissue? Now the interesting trivia part is that Francis was actually played by none other than today's Max Caster, so I'd love to know what he thought about all of this. And once again, let's just take the story as read. All right, Bobby Lashley was an asshole of an older brother, and his parents definitely should have been telling him off. But in terms of like some big scandal, it's like, no, not really. He was just a dickhead kid. There's loads of them. For some reason, Lashley waited in the back and allowed all of this to play out before he came to the ring going, ha 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 ha. When of course he attacked Sami Zayn, and then dun dun, all the sisters tried to attack him when Bob got every single one of these items and he used it as a weapon. Like, Lashley, this ain't doing nothing to protect your innocence. If you want to know as well, this only went 10 minutes, but I think in some parts of my brain, it's still going on because it just felt so damn long. I mean, it really was a pile. I think we're long enough into the video of The crowd didn't care at all because of course they didn't. They were probably embarrassed to be there. And once again, the real joy of this is that Sami Zayn and Bobby Lashley are super duper stars today, meaning they were able to overcome this. And trust me, it would have ruined other people's careers. That's how rubbish it was. Saying that, Lashley also then had to go through all that lesbian stuff with Lana and Liv Morgan however long after this. Although he has talked about it in interviews, and he just goes, shrug emoji, that's called paying your dues. So he is just the nicest, most loveliest man ever. I don't know about you, but that's probably the version you want to portray on TV. It really does sound like he's the best guy as well, because Bob was asked about this during a Shaq wrestling interview a year or so ago, and here's what he had to say about all the other people involved. I've got it written down here, and he said, for those guys, I mean, best of luck to them. They're awesome at the time, and I know they're doing well right now. I mean, they will have to do whatever it takes to try and make it, including this baloney. What really annoys me is that years after this, Bobby Lashley went to Vince McMahon and he said, hey, I've got an idea for a story. Why don't I lose a bunch of matches? I then basically lose my will to be in shape. I get really fat. When someone has to come light a fire under my ass, I get back in shape, I do return, and I win a championship. And that got turned down by 3 people pretending to be his sisters, and Sami Zayn just jumped around. Well, that was totally fine. So look, I do like WWE, I like all promotions, but back then, sucked. Amazingly too, Bobby Lashley was successful in this feud where he pinned Sami Zayn, and his next challenger was Roman Reigns, and again, this was 2018, so WWE loved Roman Reigns. As they both said, I think I should be the next #1 contender for the Universal title, and the other one disagreed, so they had a match, and flipping Bob won. Of course, there was then a big hoo-ha to find out who was actually going to face Brock Lesnar, and it was the Tribal Chief, or the future Tribal Chief. But man, talk about night and day. Bob had been in the myrrh, and now he's headed up to the sky again. I don't know what myrrh is. In September of that year as well, it was when Lio Rush was introduced as his manager. That's another thing that went totally awry. I actually think these two had quite good chemistry. Then after a while, Bobby Lashley had to flex his butt as Leo commentated on it. You know what? I'm done talking about WWE from 2018. I watched too much wrestling. Doubling back round as well, the thing that was never explained about this is what happened to Bobby Lashley's real sisters. Surely he should have been like, well, obviously these are a bunch of people that Sami Zayn hired to try and make fun of me, but now let me introduce you to my real family. But he never did that. And like all of the stories that I tell you on this worst booking series, WWE just dropped it and never talked about it again. So I don't want to sound like a broken record. I don't want to be Groundhog Day. This is why we should appreciate WWE much more in 2024. And that rhymes so you know it's true. Because even if a story is absolute pants, 9 times out of 10, it gets an ending. Whereas here, this almost doubled up with an unsolved mystery. Bob just let this happen and never try to right the wrong. And if you were Francis, Jessica, or Kathy, wouldn't you be like, hey Bob, the next time you're having dinner at Christmas time, you have just misrepresented us on television and we don't appreciate it. So maybe Bobby Lashley isn't a babyface at all. I had a quick look as well and I couldn't find any information what Sami Zayn thought about this. I'm just going to make it up. I want to make it very clear, this is me lying, this is me exaggerating, but I would guess he probably thinks it's one of the worst things he has ever been involved with, although fair play to that guy. He is the master of taking bad situations and making them work. Remember that Jackass match? No, I actually thought on paper that was a good idea, but nobody could have done it as well as Sami Zayn. He is the hero keeps on giving. Also, just so you have all the information, I did do some research and Jessica was actually played by independent wrestler Mr. Everything Victor Andrews. And as for the third sister, I couldn't find any details about that. Probably because they buried it, which is not a bad idea. So we are going to start this off with a quote from Paul Heyman, who is Roman Reigns' best friend. On a podcast with Rick Rubin, he said, the feud rivalry story with Baron Corbin over dog food and the infamous Suffering Thuckatash promo had weighed on him, Roman Reigns, enough to where he said, I've had enough, I've reached the cap, I can't go any further. As the big dog, I've peaked. However, as an athlete, I haven't peaked as a performer, I barely scratched the surface, I have so much more to offer, and since I'm taking time off, I'm not going to come back as the same person. So this was, of course, when Roman did go away due to the pandemic. And look, there was not a lot of positives that came out of that time in our lives. But given that Reigns did come back as the Tribal Chief, and ever since then has been Fabu, well, that's absolutely one tick we can take from it. Also, let's not pretend he wouldn't have greenlit Heyman saying this either. Because yes, today, we are going to turn those clocks back over a few years and talk about that slapping dog food angle, which was just really, really upsetting. And that is coming from me, who is Mr. Positive, and even Baron Corbin kind of hinted that he didn't enjoy this either, because when someone did an old tweetaroo about this angle, he was like, man, listen, seriously, honestly, it absolutely stunk, and I almost threw up, because yeah, it was real dog food. And this is a very simple answer to that question, because who the hell wants dog food poured all over them? And Baron had to suffer it, and Roman Reigns had to suffer it, and Dolph Ziggler, he was kind of there too, hanging out playing Nintendo. For those who aren't aware though, brace yourself. It's going down in 2019 after WWE had done a second draft that year, because of course they did. We did indeed get into a feud between Roman Reigns and King Corbin. As Reigns' nickname was the Big Dog though, poor Corbin was told he had to go to the ring and start mocking pooches, including this. Can you see this? That's right. It's a literal cartoon puppet Big Dog, and Baron Corbin and Robert Roode and Dolph Ziggler, they just stand there going, ha ha ha, like it was the funniest thing in the world. It wasn't. Now the reason there was 3 on the good side and 3 on the bad side is because the Usos had also linked up with Roman Reigns, so we could do 6-man tags. And look, this program wasn't all bad. In fact, Roman and Baron had a very entertaining Falls Count Anywhere match at the 2020 Royal Rumble. It was just everything else around it. Because around about 4 weeks before this, yes, the bad guys did indeed get Roman Reigns. They taped him to the ring post, which is weird all in of itself, and they got a can of dog food, because again, I'm gonna run this into the ground, he is the big dog, and they started to drown him in it. I still remember watching this and asking myself, what are we doing? Of course, the idea was to humiliate him, but most people, even kids, sat around going, yeah, that was really dumb. Naturally, Roman and friends eventually returned the favour, but this was after Baron Corbin and his cohorts had lost a loser eats dog food match. Yep, that was the stipulation, and listen what they said about it on WWE.com. With the penalty of having to eat dog food on the line, you read that correctly in brackets, Roman Reigns and the Usos squared off against King Corbin, Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode in the main event of this special Super SmackDown. The two sides went at it tooth and nail for the duration of the contest, with neither group wanting to go anywhere near the dog food. So they're not even taking it seriously. CM Punk was also on WWE backstage at that point, and he said this to Corbin as well. I saw you cover Roman in the dog food, so my instant analysis was that's real dog food, and I know it is, because I can see Vince saying, we gotta use real dog food, it's gotta be real dog food. It doesn't, but knowing him. And yes, as I've already told you, it was real dog food. When you're discussing an angle on wrestling TV, this shouldn't be the conversation point. Baron also had to describe Roman as a chihuahua, as little barks played out over the PA. Listen to some of these lines he had to say. I think the big dog's testicles have shriveled up into itsy bitsy marbles. So either he'd gone to a doctor or he'd taken a peek in the shower. I do want to point out that as ever, Baron Corbin fit effortlessly into this role because he's so damn versatile. But you could have put The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin into this and people still would have gone, wanted to stop. We all forget as well is that this became an MO for Baron, Dolph and Roode, because they even tried to do this to Kofi Kingston. Why are we dragging Kofi into this? But of course, Roman Reigns and the Usos made the save, which led to that ridiculous stipulation we've already talked about. Now there's always an exception to the rule, and don't forget that Reigns lost twice during this feud, and it was the last time he was pinned during a singles match, and it was by Baron Corbin. And yeah, you can go on the internet right now. A lot of people are begging for that today. You know what? They may get it soon. This is also a massive reason why we should remember what we have now, because there is no way that WWE would do anything like this, especially in one of those premium live event post-press conferences. They'd be asked the question. Can you imagine Triple H be there like, I didn't want to do it, I'm so sorry. No, he's just not going to book it in the first place. And really too, when you do go watch this era Roman Reigns and you compare it to the current version, you can almost convince yourself that they're two different people. I mean, they operate in two completely different universes. And as ever, look, I mean this from the bottom of my Tootsie Toes. If you enjoyed this, more power to you. You win this game, but it was not taking advantage of the performer known as Roman Reigns. I mean, look at some of the emotions he's able to pull out right now. There's also a dumb use of Baron Corbin, because I've already told you he is like a chameleon. And again, if you need more evidence, just go watch him down on NXT right now. Soon it will be time to call him back up on the main roster, and if you do what we did in NXT on Raw or SmackDown, he's gonna fly. So indeed, this is absolutely the worst booking ever, and really, all I had to do was walk on here and say dog food. Why would two adult people, be fighting over dog food? And if it was a real sport, somebody would walk in and go, excuse me, you can't use that because one, it's disgusting, and two, it's pretty damn pathetic. In case you're not convinced either, here's some other random stuff that happened too. At one point, Roman accused Baron Corbin of having a dog food fetish. I'm sorry, those two words should never be involved in any pro wrestling angle. Before that loser has to eat dog food match, throughout that entire episode of SmackDown, we kept cutting back to footage of somebody stirring this stuff. And one, it looked absolutely horrible, and two, who the hell was this guy? Who did we hire to stir some dog food? It doesn't make any sense. There's also a big discussion online whether this was dog food or chili, because apparently back in the day, that's what people used to use, and no, that doesn't make it any better. Some individuals actually thought this did a decent job because he got Roman Reigns being cheered. But again, all I'm going to tell you to do is listen to the reactions then and listen to the reactions now, and it is proper night and day. Also, just from my vantage point, it sucked. So even if people were making noise, well, I never want to see it again. And also, even with all of that, a few weeks later, it's not like all of a sudden Roman Reigns had become this brand new John Cena. Everybody was still booing him, and other haters had more ammunition in the form of two words: doggest food. So it really was the end of days, and yes, that was a pun, but it does actually go to show that no matter what kind of position you are in or how bad your future may look, it only takes a few weeks for someone to hit the reset button and you to start to climb your way back up to the main event. But also, you do have some creative control, and somebody says they want to involve animal treats. Well, just a little tip from me, I don't know anything, but say no. Now make sure you click the video on the screen, which is 10 craziest places wrestlers hit their finisher. That's just a funny video all around. But also, go into these comments and tell me, did you like this angle, did you not like this angle? And do you actually prefer this type of WWE? I don't know, someone's got to agree with it.